So my question is, what is it that's true of an animal that, if true of a human, would justify stabbing them to death for a hamburger? And if you can name such a property, something that if true of humans would justify doing this to them, would you be able to spell out the situation in which we do it to them without sounding completely psychopathic?
That was not a good video of mine, and I've deleted it, and I've apologized for that. Why? Because it's forming this tribal mentality of be on this side and that side is evil, or you're on that side and this side is evil, and it's good for drumming up drama and getting views because people battle it out in the comments section. But I disagree with this sort of mentality now because it's just too hypocritical of me. I don't like this mentality, and I can't be doing it myself.
In my opinion, I think that the environment, especially the social environment in the US and even in the world, when it comes down to politics, is extremely divisive, extremely vitriolic, and as a result of that, it's just, if there's one thing that you can get people to agree on, you can get people to agree that political issues are more divisive than ever, at least in recent times. And then when you ask people for a solution, everyone will just go ahead and point fingers at one another and say, well, it's them that are doing it, and it's one of those things. Is there even a solution? I have no idea. And I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to tread there. And that's not what this video is about.
Why is it, why can't we just kill, if we find people who have the characteristics of livestock, why can't we treat them exactly like livestock, right? So that's sort of a question you just asked. Well, given the nature of what we are as social primates, treating people exactly like livestock has a different consequence on us and on our culture and on our capacity to live with one another than treating livestock like livestock. So it's not precisely the same problem, right? So but in this world, at this moment, given all the moving parts, if people start eating their parents when they die, we feel differently about them, right? And that begins to derange many other things we care about. So you have to take all the consequences in view. Now, I think that it's impossible to defend factory farming as it is. I mean, knowing the details. I think it's just, we want to solve that problem somehow, right? And yet, I happen to think that it's not at all obvious that we can all be vegans and be healthy, right? I mean, we were talking, to give the full picture, we were talking about the problem of being a parent and having vegan or vegetarian kids, right? Now, my view of that is that you're running a kind of science experiment on your kids, and it's not totally clear how it's going to come out, right? And when I've run that experiment on myself, it's, I became anemic the first time I was a vegetarian for 6 years. All kinds of things go sideways in my blood the last time I did this experiment for a year. Now, no doubt with more intelligence or more attention to the details, most people can solve those problems for themselves as a vegan or a vegetarian, but perhaps not everyone can, right? And I think there may be another solution.
In this place, I'm standing next to someone with whom I have, differences, shall we say, in terms of politics and all kinds of other things, precisely because I think all this has got to stop. This rage, resentment, hostility, intolerance, above all this with us or against us, certainty. A grand canyon has opened up in our world. The fissure, the crack, grows wider every day. Neither on each side can hear a word that the other shrieks, and nor do they want to. While these armies and propagandists in the culture wars clash, down below in the enormous space between the two sides, the people of the world try to get on with their lives, alternately baffled, bored, and betrayed by the horrible noises and explosions that echo all around. I think it's time for this toxic, binary, zero-sum madness to stop before we destroy ourselves.
You support it. And this is why discussions about veganism are so much more intense and so much more fraught with emotion than questions of how can we tolerate and include transgender people, how can we tolerate gambling, how can we tolerate drug addicts, because it's not about tolerance. Whichever decision you make, you are supporting one side or the other. It's a civil war that divides the whole world into two unequal halves, and there's no third option. Either you are supporting the meat industry, the dairy industry, the egg industry, or you are refusing to support them. You're supporting vegan companies, you're supporting a vegan cause. There is no third way.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. From this day forward, any nation that continues to harbor or support terrorism will be regarded by the United States as a hostile regime.
From Animals Australia today about banning live exports, which I thought was a remarkable thing, which we need to follow in the UK. Now, you might say, so what? The animal is still going to be killed. But that is opening a door on a particular kind of inhumanity and cruelty. And once people start to focus on one part of cruelty, I think they then go on to other parts of cruelty. Tell your MP how concerned you are about animal welfare.
I just want to make a distinction between animal welfare and animal liberation, because these animals, I mean, it's just a semantics thing, but welfare has a very strong meaning in the animal rights movement, because a lot of these animals there that you see were, you know, basically treated under standard animal welfare practice. I mean, animal welfare means, animal welfare in its true sense should mean real welfare, like human welfare would mean like looking after them and not exploiting them, but it's been adulterated, that word, to mean like high welfare farms where they're still getting bolt gunned and slashed across the throat. Also, before we point us...
This is an ethical dichotomy. And what we hear again and again from these people is the reassurance that they tolerate us, that they regard us as vegans as yet another disadvantaged minority, as yet another group like transgender people, and they want to reassure us that they're very liberal and very pious and very concerned, and they'll accept us in their midst. They'll even maybe accept us having a district, the same way a lot of big cities have a gay district or something, that we can have our restaurants, we can have our little places and hangouts too. And again, this isn't methodologically sophisticated, but that's misapprehending the nature of this conflict. And of course, their next step is to say, but you also have to tolerate us. You also have to, just as we're being accepting and liberal towards you, you also have to accept us, the meat-eating majority, right? That's always the next step of that argument. Mutual acceptance, mutual tolerance. Is that how either side could win or lose in the Syrian civil war?
And I deeply and instinctively distrust conformity and orthodoxy. Progress is not achieved by preachers and guardians of morality, but, to paraphrase Yevgeny Zamyatin, by madmen, hermits, heretics, dreamers, rebels, and skeptics.
I don't say, Joe, I agree entirely. I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't believe there is any animal welfare without animal rights.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. And there is a distinction, certainly amongst politicians, where they say, now we're talking about animal welfare, not animal rights here, but it doesn't exist. I meant it as a kind of...
Yeah, in the true sense of its word.
If you're going to have slaughtermen, they need to be deprogrammed. after about 6 months, or to be taken out of the job. So that if you're going to do it, and I don't agree it should happen, but if you're going to have it happening, they should deal with it as gently as possible. I'm not, by saying that, I'm not approving of it.
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't even entertain what you're saying here. And I think it's dangerous territory. It's a very slippery slope. As soon as we start talking about standards here and going, okay, so the standards need to be changed. And then we'll start reaching for this utopian standard of slaughter and exploitation. But as soon as you view an animal as a product, as soon as you start viewing a chicken as a resource, that is when the ethics begin.
There's this, if you really are worried just about the experience of conscious creatures, there is a way of flipping this around. I have no illusions that this will convince you, a committed vegan or vegetarian, but this, you have to have an actual counter-argument if you stipulate what I want you to stipulate here. If it's possible to raise livestock under conditions where they're really living lives worth living, right? So that you can really have happy cows or happy ducks or chickens or pigs. Which is to say, it would be better for those animals to have been than to not have been. These are net positive lives. Well, then that's a world in which veganism is not actually the most compassionate solution. That would be a world in which bringing those billions of creatures into existence and giving them net positive lives would be better than not, if you think well-being aggregates in some way. If you have the intuition that having a world with 7 billion happy people is better than a world with 2 billion happy people, stipulating that happiness accrues in some sense, right? You can run that same experiment. Now, I'm not saying we're anywhere near there with respect to our current practices, and I would completely support every differentiation one wanted to make with respect to the ethics of treating animals well, but it's not given all of the moving parts, it's not a straightforward question of saying, well, obviously everyone should be vegan right now.
And I was so angry when I found out that I'd been lied to my whole life. They told me that there was something humane happened along the way. Now, all those animals you see in the fields, you might be driving around out here in the British countryside, you see those animals in the fields and it makes you feel a little bit better. You know, they're in the fields, they're eating their grass, they're free. I tell you right now, you can get me footage of the most humane slaughterhouse on the planet, and we can talk about that, but nothing humane happens in a slaughterhouse. Looking at animals as products can never be humane. They're not products, they're individuals, and they are sentient. There's no way to humanely exploit someone, and I don't even think we should be pushing for this high welfare slaughterhouse nonsense, because this stuff is always going to happen. No, I'm not suggesting you were, but I think, like, even as a vegan abolitionist movement, we need to be very careful of this, because this is where they're trying to steer it, because they're going to fight kicking and screaming to keep these slaughterhouses open. And if we make people feel comfortable about what's happening in these places, then it's going to fuel their money. Because people are going to, okay, I'll buy the free range, or I'll buy the humanely slaughtered pork, leave those pigs alone, we'll get the ones that were killed gently, or very, very dangerous territory, and we shouldn't even entertain it. We should say, no, all exploitation is wrong. If you wouldn't do it to a human, then we can't justify doing it to an animal.
I've spent a lifetime loathing and opposing preachiness, with great respect, piety, self-righteousness, heresy hunting, denunciation, shaming, assertion without evidence, accusation, inquisition, censoring.
Animals.
I do think the fact, I'm not suggesting in any way that one forms an acceptance, but one has to face a reality that it is happening.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen, I agree, and I don't want it to happen, but if it's going to happen, they should take all of that kicking and stuff out of it. That doesn't make it any better.
No.
It just doesn't make it any more horrible.
I mean, shooting someone in the head, whether you kick them beforehand or not, is no consolation, and we shouldn't entertain it. And I think we need to stand firm in that, no matter what, as activists, no matter what.
I want to get to the Golden Hill, but I don't think that's the way to get there. I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective.
And so a farmer is doing a response to this by playing the video and talking over the top of the video and giving his reasons why it's absolutely fine. And that is the disturbing bit. And it's not actually addressing the fact that it is in itself horrendous. So listen to all the justifications, and it's bizarre. So I'm mostly just going to let the farmer talk, and you can hear for yourselves how absolutely appalling what he's saying is. If anyone can watch this video and say, quote, "I don't see any problem with this at all," then they are legitimately psychopathic. So Vlog Like No One's Watching, many of you guys will know, who comment frequently on my channel. He's a frequent commenter. He's probably, I would say he's probably my harshest critic, and this guy is really good on my channel at provoking conversation. Whether he's right or whether he's wrong is quite an interesting guy to have around, even if he's some sort of shill because he's not a vegan, but even if he's some sort of shill because he normally gives counter arguments to my vegan positions. It's sort of interesting to have around. But he just started going mental on this video, like accusing me of spouting propaganda nonsense and leaving up propaganda when I knew it was false, and just accusing me of many things. And he was just plaguing the comment section of that video with that this is propaganda. Blah. And I was like thinking, but I even said to him multiple times, you don't have any evidence for this. Like, you're just asserting that it's fake. Like, how do you know that this is fake? But it turns out that he was right. It was fake. I don't know how he knew this. Maybe he somehow knew the person who did it, or maybe he even did it himself. I don't know. But so it was fake, apparently. So
so I did this farmer's perspective response to Land of Hope and Glory, and recently it's got quite a few views, a few shares, and then so some people got a bit worried about it. Oh, this is going to hurt the movement.
It's actually quite an accurate simulation. It's a dishonest video. It was previously, before he's now renamed it to be obvious, more clear and less misleading, or not misleading at all, because it's changed the title of it. So now we know that it's a simulation. But previously, it was misleading, but it's actually quite an accurate simulation of the type of things that a farmer would say, because how else, it doesn't really change anything. It changed the fact that it wasn't legitimate from a farmer, but it doesn't really change his argumentation, because I have heard this argumentation before. So again, this is an interesting thing. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I don't think I'm going to delete the original video. I'm just going to retitle it, or say in the description that it's now been found out to be a simulated response.